Chapter 11. Trees and Stones. The Morgan house, like most of the houses on Eagle Lake, was built into the hillside above the lake. The upper floor was originally all there was, the lower floor having been added on the lakeside later by remodeling the garage and building an addition. It is on the lower floor that Sarita lives, in what used to be the garage, a big room with a sink, a tiny refrigerator, and a couch that opens into a bed. Beyond Sarita's room, past the stairs that come down from the lake room above, past a hallway with a bathroom, behind a perpetually closed door, is the addition. Charlie's mother's studio. Charlie stands in the shadowy dark hallway staring at the closed door. It was her mother's studio, she thinks. What it is now is something else again. Storeroom, warehouse, museum. She has not gone into it the way she hadn't walked the woods trail since she was 10 years old, and her mother's real voice, her real, living, breathing self, filled it with activity and life. Sadie and Coyote have gone. As soon as Coyote finished eating, they swam the lake in the rain and disappeared beneath the Davises' trees. Still wearing her slicker, she stood on the dock and watched them go. Her father left moments later, and Charlie was alone with the rain. The empty day in the empty house stretched ahead of her like a trek across the wilderness. If the rain continued, she wouldn't even go sit on the boulder and play Jane Goodall in Coyote's territory. She took a shower, scrubbing carefully to get rid of the poison ivy oil, washed and dried her hair, put on clean clothes, and considered fixing herself something to eat. She tried to find a movie she wanted to watch on television. She picked up and put down 3 books, and then she crept down the stairs, feeling like an intruder as she moved through Sarita's room and into the hall. Her mother's voice has been in her head since she fell on the trail. Listen, listen. Since before that. Since the dream. It is what brought her here, as if she is following the sound. Now she watches her hand reach for the knob, the way a camera would focus close in on a movie, and opens the door. She stands at the door, listening to the rain pound on the roof over her head, and then steps inside. Dust. Silence. She touches the wall switch, and the long room is flooded with light. Too much light. Quickly she turns it off and goes to the desk by the nearest window to turn on a reading lamp. Her mother's photographs, some framed, some only matted, cover almost every inch of the wall above the built-in cabinets that line much of the room. Each one is a photo of some bit of Eagle Lake. Her mother believed that all of nature could be found in any part of it. I don't have to go any farther than our woods, she used to say. Until someone who had seen her work lured her away to a rainforest in Brazil. Charlie would never know why her mother went, what she found there. Whatever pictures she took vanished from the world as completely as she did when the plane went down. On the floor, leaning against one leg of a work table that takes up the center of the room, their brown, paper-covered backs facing her, are the framed photos Charlie took down from the walls of her room the day of the funeral. She doesn't even remember now what they are. She leans down to turn the first one around. Mistake. Seeing it is like a blow to the stomach. It is the picture her mother took of her of the fairy castle. Her mother took for her of the fairy castle. It isn't really a fairy castle, of course. It's only the stump of an ancient pine tree, broken off a foot or so above ground. The black and white photo was taken early one morning when mist was still rising from the moss in the first rays of the morning sun. The plates of the pine tree's bark, layer after thin layer, formed a jagged ring of concentric circles. The castle's battlements. Around the central core, a space like a courtyard carpeted with moss. In the middle of the courtyard, a tower of splintered wood, crusted with lichen, rises another foot. Between the 2 roots, a hole leads into darkness beneath, like an entrance to the mysterious interior. It was Charlie who named it the Fairy Castle, playing there while her mother took photographs or waited to take them. A million times she must have imagined herself going into that hole between the roots, down into the darkness, and then up again into the candle-lit, glittery rooms of the castle. The kitchen, the bedrooms, the dining hall. The stump must still be out there, just a plain old stump, like plenty of others, probably nearly hidden now by leaves that have never been brushed away as she used to do to keep the courtyard clear and the entrance open. But it was magical when she was little enough to believe, well, almost believe, in fairies. The photograph used to hang on the wall across from her bed where she could see it as soon as she opened her eyes. Even now she can almost see a figure standing in the castle courtyard dressed in shades of brown and green, slim and winged like dragonfly with transparent, iridescent double wings. Charlie turns the photo around again and straightens up. The cheerful, friendly clutter that was her mother's way of working has been tidied away. Her father, or Sarita, has packed most of her mother's belongings into the box that stand open on the table. By the door at the far end of the room that leads outside, boxes are stacked on the daybed under the window. The bigger equipment has been draped with cloths, standing now like hulking ghosts. The door to the darkroom stands ajar, the sign that used to warn Charlie away when the darkroom was in use hanging crooked from its hook. She has been right to stay away from here, she thinks. She goes to turn off the lamp and notices a stack of books on the desk. They are new, and all the same, a coffee table book she has never seen before. Trees and Stones Will Teach You by Colleen Morgan. Charlie stares at her mother's name. Colleen Morgan. What use is a name when there is no person to attach it to, no person to answer if you say it aloud? The book's cover photo, taken from the water, is of the sweet gum her mother called Tree. Surrounded by woods, thousands and thousands of trees, her mother loved this one best. Somewhere in these cabinets, in these drawers, Charlie thinks, there must be hundreds of photos of Tree. In every season, in every kind of weather, in every kind of light. Weed trees, people call sweet gums. When a pair of beavers started chewing the bark of Eagle Lake trees, the community considered getting someone in to kill the beavers and save the woods, until they found out that beavers have a preference for sweet gums. They can take all of those they want, the president of the board said. Charlie's mother pointed out later that the beavers never laid a tooth on Tree. He's a survivor, she said. Enormously tall, Tree was growing on the hillside above the creek more than 70 years ago when the dam was built. As the water rose, the lake gradually surrounded Tree so that it was growing almost completely in the water. Other trees along the waterline gradually died, their roots drowned, but Tree stayed on, green, then red, then bare-boned, then green again. Charlie went with her mother to see Tree by the water more times than she could remember. Her mother would pull the canoe against his trunk, touch him, talk to him. Charlie picks up the book on top of the stack and opens it, leafs through the pages. Like most of the books her mother took photographs for, this one has more pictures than words. Across from each photo is a short poem or quotation. On the title page is the rest of the title quotation. Trees and stones will teach you that which you can never learn from masters. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. Charlie looks at the cover photo again. Trees stand out against the green shrubs of the hillside, his trunk centered between the deep red of his autumn leaves above and their reflection in the water from which he grows. Survivor. How can a tree live in water more than 70 years and the human who loved and admired him vanish in an instant, half a world away from home? Charlie turns out the light and leaves the studio, carefully closing the door behind her. She shouldn't have come, she thinks, but she takes the book with her.